My fiancée mocked my dead brother at her birthday party, so I canceled everything, exposed her online, and her life crumbled within days. I'm a 30-year-old guy, and before anything else, I'm the brother of someone I still miss every single day. My older brother Jason was the kind of person who could walk into a room and instantly make it warmer. He had that rare mix of charisma and gentleness. He could tease you one second and defend you the next. When he died in a car accident 5 years ago, it felt like the air had been ripped out of my lungs. The world just tilted. For months, I couldn't sleep without replaying that night in my head. The call from the hospital. My mother's scream. The sterile smell of disinfectant when I walked into the emergency room and realized he wasn't coming back. There's a strange kind of silence that follows grief, like the world moves on. But you're still stuck in that one horrible moment, looping endlessly. My parents fell apart. My dad buried himself in work. My mom could barely get out of bed. And me, I did what Jason would have done. I tried to keep everyone together. I paid bills, ran errands, cooked dinners none of us could eat. But deep down, I carried this ugly guilt. He was supposed to be the one who made it. He had plans, dreams, people who looked up to him. And I was just the brother who survived 2 years later. When I met Lauren, it felt like someone had finally cracked open a window in a suffocating room. She was light where my world had been dark, charming, ambitious, full of life. She didn't flinch when I talked about Jason. She'd listen, hold my hand, and say things like, "He'd be proud of you, you know?" For the first time, I thought maybe healing was possible. But looking back now, I realized that was just the calm before the storm. When I first met Lauren, I wasn't looking for love. I was still half living in Jason's shadow, working a dull job, eating alone most nights, and visiting his grave every Sunday like it was church. But Lauren had this spark that pulled me out of my own head. We met at a mutual friend's housewarming, and she was the loudest laugh in the room, glass of wine in one hand, phone in the other, telling stories that had everyone leaning in. She noticed me watching and said, "You look like you could use someone to drag you into the fun side of life." I smiled for the first time in months. From there, everything moved fast. She was magnetic, texting me every morning, sending memes, calling me during her lunch breaks. She'd say, "You're too serious, babe. I'm gonna fix that." And somehow, I let her. She had this way of making every ordinary moment feel like a scene from a movie. Impromptu road trips, midnight ice cream runs, dancing in the kitchen to music from her playlist. When I told her about Jason, she didn't shy away. She asked questions, listened carefully, and said, "He sounds like someone I would have loved." There was something disarming about that. My friends told me I looked lighter, like the grief wasn't eating me alive anymore. And for a while, I believed Lauren was the reason. She met my parents after 6 months. My mom teared up when Lauren placed flowers at Jason's photo and said softly, "I wish I'd met him." My dad even smiled, a rare thing since the accident. It felt like maybe, finally, life was letting us breathe again. But sometimes, I'd catch Lauren watching me when Jason's name came up, her smile a little too tight, her eyes just a bit too distant. I ignored it then, but now, I know that was the first warning sign I refused to see for a while. Things between us looked perfect, at least from the outside. Our friends called us the golden couple. Every weekend, Lauren would post cute photos of us at brunch, hiking trails, or sitting by candlelight with captions like, "My person forever." People commented things like, "couple goals," and I'll admit, I liked it. After years of grief and numbness, it felt good to be part of something beautiful again. But when the pictures stopped, the smiles faded too. Lauren started making offhand comments that stung more than I let on. "Do we really need to talk about Jason every time something emotional comes up? Or your family still acts like he's the only one who ever mattered?" I tried to explain that grief doesn't expire that. Jason's absence was still part of who we were, but she'd just sigh and say, "You're too sentimental, babe. It's not healthy to live in the past." At first, I thought she meant well. She wanted me to move forward. But it slowly became clear she wasn't helping me heal. She wanted me to forget. When my mom invited her to the annual memorial dinner for Jason, she rolled her eyes. "Do they seriously still do that every year? Isn't it depressing?" Her tone was dismissive, but I brushed it off, telling myself she just didn't understand. She didn't know what it was like to lose someone that close. Still, her coldness crept into moments that should have been safe. Like when I played one of Jason's old songs in the car and she switched it mid, saying, "I can't listen to sad stuff right now." On the surface, we looked perfect smiling in selfies, holding hands in public, but behind closed doors, something was starting to rot. I just didn't realize how deep that rot would go. Until her birthday came. Lauren's 28th birthday was supposed to be special. I'd spent weeks planning eat a rooftop dinner at her favorite restaurant, custom cake, her closest friends, her coworkers, even a few of mine. I wanted to show her how much she meant to me, how grateful I was for pulling me out of the dark. She loved attention, and I figured one night of celebration was the least I could give her. I never imagined it would become the night that broke everything. The evening started perfectly. The air was cool, city lights glittered below us, and Lauren looked stunning in a red dress that caught everyone's eyes. She laughed, toasted, posed for photos, and kissed my cheek every time someone complimented her. For a moment, I thought maybe we were finding our way back. But around the third round of drinks, her jokes got sharper. It began when one of my friends mentioned Jason, while congratulating me on finally being happy again. Lauren rolled her eyes and said, loud enough for the table to hear, "Oh, the famous brother." Again, there was a nervous chuckle, but I froze. She smirked and continued, "I swear, if I have to hear one more story about St. Jason, I might start praying to him myself." The laughter this time was forced. I leaned closer and whispered, "Lauren, stop." But she was tipsy, maybe more than that. She lifted her glass and said, "What? I'm just saying maybe he wasn't that perfect. I mean, if he really was, he wouldn't have wrapped his car around a pole." The sound around us died instantly. The music kept playing, but the world went silent. My chest tightened, my hands shook, and I couldn't find words. Guests looked anywhere but at me. Lauren giggled and took another sip. That's when something inside me snapped, not loud, not dramatic, just the quiet breaking point I couldn't ignore anymore. I don't remember standing up high, just remember the sound of my chair scraping against the floor and the way every head turned toward me. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. "Lauren," I said quietly, "that's enough." She looked at me like I was overreacting. "Oh, come on," she laughed, waving her hand. It was a joke. Everyone's so sensitive. But no one was laughing. The air was thick with disbelief, the kind that makes people hold their breath because they know something sacred just got violated. I leaned closer and whispered, "You're talking about my brother. Don't ever joke about him." She rolled her eyes and muttered, "He's been dead for years. Maybe it's time you let it go." That sentence, those exact words, cut through me like glass. The same woman who once said Jason sounded like someone she'd love was now mocking the fact that he was gone. I could feel my face burning, my throat tightening. Every part of me wanted to scream, to tell her how cruel she was, but instead I just turned around and walked out. Behind me, I could hear people calling my name, someone asking if I was okay, Lauren saying something about me being too emotional. I didn't stop. I got into my car, hands trembling on the steering wheel, and drove aimlessly through the city lights until I ended up parked outside Jason's old favorite diner. That's where I finally broke. I cried until my chest ached, until I couldn't breathe. Not just because of what she said, but because I realized something terrifying. I'd spent 2 years loving someone who thought my grief was a punchline. I thought about going back, demanding an apology, but deep down, I knew something had shifted permanently. There was no going back from this. The next morning, I woke up with swollen eyes and a pounding headache, the kind that only grief can cause. My phone was buzzing nonstop texts, missed calls, voicemails, all from Lauren. Each message was some version of damage control. "You're blowing this out of proportion." I was drunk. Everyone knew it was just a joke. By the 10th voicemail, she was crying loud, messy sobs about how I'd embarrassed her by leaving her birthday. Somehow, she was the victim now. When I didn't respond, she showed up at my apartment door wearing sunglasses and holding a coffee like nothing happened. "Can we talk?" she asked softly. I didn't invite her in, but she walked past me anyway. She started with her usual performance-shaky voice, tearful apologies, hands trembling for effect. "I was nervous," she said. "Your friends don't even like me. I was just trying to make people laugh." I stared at her in disbelief. "You mocked my dead brother, Lauren." In front of everyone, she scoffed. "You make it sound like I cursed his name." "I just said what everyone thinks." Sure, family treats him like some perfect saint. That sentence made my blood run cold. She wasn't sorry. She was angry that people saw her for what she was. When I told her to leave, she threw the coffee in the trash and muttered, "You're impossible to talk to when you're emotional." Then she slammed the door behind her. Later that night, my mom called after hearing what happened. Her voice was trembling. She said, "What about Jason?" I could barely answer. My parents were devastated, and I could hear my mother crying quietly on the other end. That's when the guilt hit again because I'd brought Lauren into their lives. Let her sit at Jason's memorials. Let her speak his name like it meant something. I thought it was over, but it was just beginning. Because instead of apologizing, Lauren decided to rewrite the story. A few days passed in uneasy silence before I started hearing little whispers from mutual friends, subtle changes in how people spoke to me. At first I thought I was imagining it, but then one of my coworkers pulled me aside and said, "Hey man, Lauren's been telling people you had some kind of meltdown at her party." My stomach dropped. When I checked social media, there it was, her birthday post still up, captioned, "When your fiancé storms out over a harmless joke, still the best night ever," with a laughing emoji. The comments were full of her friends defending her, saying things like, "He's always been too dramatic and can't take a joke, huh?" I just sat there staring at my phone, feeling this slow, sick wave of realization. She wasn't ashamed. She was building a new version of reality. I tried calling her once, just to understand why. She answered on speakerphone, her tone dripping with fake sweetness. "Oh, you mean my ex-fiancé?" she said loudly, clearly for whoever was in the room with her, the one who screamed at me in public because I made a lighthearted joke. I didn't scream. I didn't even raise my voice. I hung up and felt something inside me go completely still. That night, I got a message from one of her coworkers who had been at the party. It was a short video, blurry, but clear enough. You could hear Lauren laughing, saying the exact words that shattered me. Maybe he wasn't that great if he drove into a pole. The camera even caught the awkward silence that followed. The coworker's text said, "You didn't deserve that." I watched that clip over and over, my hands shaking with rage and disbelief. For 2 years, I thought I'd found someone who brought me peace, but she'd just been waiting for the right moment to weaponize my pain. That's when I decided silence wasn't going to protect her anymore. It took me 2 nights to decide how to handle it. I wasn't the kind of person who aired private pain online. But Lauren wasn't just cruel, she was rewriting history, and people believed her. That was the part that kept me awake at 3 a.m. Knowing she was out there laughing, painting me as unstable while she mocked the dead and played the victim. I didn't want revenge at first. I wanted truth, so I started gathering it. I reached out to the guests from that night, quietly. Some ignored me, but others, they were furious. A few sent clips and photos, even text threads where Lauren bragged about how she'd put me in my place. One message from her to a friend made my skin crawl. He needs to stop living in his brother's shadow. Maybe I helped him finally move on. That was the moment I decided she wasn't going to spin this anymore. I edited together a short video. Nothing fancy, no commentary, just the raw footage, her laughing, her exact words, the uncomfortable silence, the look on my face right before I left. I uploaded it to a private account and titled it simply, "This is the woman I was supposed to marry." I expected a handful of views, maybe a few people from the party, but within hours, it exploded. Strangers began commenting, thousands of them calling her out for being heartless, narcissistic, disgusting. Someone even recognized her from her marketing job and tagged her company. The post spread across platforms like wildfire. Lauren texted me that night, her tone shifting from mockery to panic. "Take it down. You're ruining my life," she wrote. I stared at the message for a long time before replying, "No, you did that yourself." By morning, her followers had turned on her. Her job issued a reputation review, and for the first time in years, I felt something close to peace, not joy. Not vengeance, just quiet truth finally seeing the light. But the storm that followed, it was far bigger than either of us expected. Within 48 hours, the video was everywhere. News pages, gossip accounts, even Reddit threads dissecting every frame. People clipped her laugh, her tone, the look on her face right before she realized the room had gone silent. It became a viral symbol of cruelty. The woman who mocked her fiancé's dead brother, strangers made duets, calling her heartless. Psychologists analyzed her behavior. and her brand partners started quietly deleting her from their pages. Lauren tried to fight back. She posted a tearful apology video, claiming it was edited out of context and that she was being bullied. But the internet doesn't forgive easily, especially not when the original clip exists in full. Commenters pointed out her smirk, the arrogance in her body language. One comment that stuck with me said, "That's not regret. That's someone angry she got caught." By the third day, her employer released a statement about professional conduct concerns. Her Instagram comments were flooded with people quoting her cruel line about Jason. Her once flawless image as a confident, outgoing girl boss had turned to ash overnight. Watching it unfold felt surreal, like justice, but also like watching a car crash she wished never had to happen. She texted me again, this time with venom. "I hope you're happy. You've destroyed everything I built." I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. "You destroyed it the second you opened your mouth." She didn't answer. Friends who once idolized her, sponsors cut ties. Her reputation, the thing she worshipped more than anything, crumbled piece by piece. And as awful as it sounds, a part of me felt free. For years, I carried the guilt of surviving Jason, like I owed the world something for his absence. But watching Lauren fall, I realized something important. People who mock kindness, who feed off others' pain, they eventually bury themselves. Still, I knew she wasn't done yet. People like Lauren never accept a fall, they find someone to drag down with them. It was around midnight when I heard the knocking, sharp, frantic, desperate. For a split second, I thought maybe it was the police or a neighbor. But when I opened the door, there she was. Lauren, her makeup was smeared, her hair tangled, eyes bloodshot from crying. She looked nothing like the woman who once demanded the spotlight. She looked hollow, like the performance had finally run out of energy. She pushed past me before I could say anything. "Please," she said, voice cracking, "you have to help me fix this." She paced my living room, shaking, words spilling out faster than she could control. "They're sending death threats. My clients dropped me. I can't go anywhere without people whispering. You have to tell them it wasn't that bad." I stood there, silent, watching her unravel. For a brief moment, I almost felt sorry for her almost. Then she said it. "I didn't mean what I said about Jason. I was jealous, okay? You talk about him like he's still here." I could never compete with a dead man. That line hit harder than anything she'd ever said. Not because it was new, but because it was honest. For the first time, she wasn't pretending. She was showing the ugly truth. She resented my brother, resented my grief, resented that she'd never be loved the way I loved him. I told her quietly, "You should leave." She froze, like she couldn't process it. "After everything I've lost, you're really kicking me out?" I nodded. "You didn't lose everything, Lauren. You threw it away." She left sobbing, slamming the door so hard it rattled the frame. I sat there for a long time, staring at the dark hallway, realizing that the pain she'd caused had finally come full circle. But instead of feeling victorious, I felt empty. Like the last piece of what we had, good or bad, had died right there on my doorstep. And for the first time since Jason's accident, I felt truly alone again. The morning after she showed up, I packed everything that reminded me of her into a box: photos, gifts, the engagement ring I never got to give her. I didn't do it out of spite. I did it because I needed space to breathe again. Every trace of her felt like poison lingering in the air. When I blocked her number, it felt like cutting off a noise that had been echoing in my head for months. My parents came over later that week. My mom hugged me for a long time, whispering, "Jason would be proud of you." My dad, a man of few words, just nodded and said, "You did what needed to be done." That sentence hit harder than I expected. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about finally standing up for the memory of the person who'd shaped me. I started going back to therapy, something I'd abandoned when Lauren convinced me I was dwelling on the past too much. My therapist didn't ask about the viral chaos. She just asked how I felt. And for once, I told the truth. Empty, but lighter. It was strange. Peace didn't come with joy or relief. It came with quiet, the kind of quiet that felt earned. A few weeks later, I visited Jason's grave. I hadn't gone since the birthday incident. I knelt down, brushed off the leaves, and said, "I think I finally get it, man. I can't keep saving people who don't want to be saved." The wind picked up, and I swear, for a second, it felt like an answer. Walking back to my car, I realized the revenge, the exposure, all of it, it wasn't about destroying her. It was about reclaiming myself from the guilt that died with my brother. But even with peace settling in, I knew the story wasn't done yet. The aftermath was still unfolding, and it had one final twist waiting for me. It's been 6 months since that night on my doorstep, and I haven't heard from Lauren since. Every now and then, her name still pops up online, someone mentioning the birthday party video, a reaction clip, or a podcast dissecting her downfall. The internet never forgets. But for me, the noise has faded. I stopped checking the views or reading the comments weeks ago. I realized that what mattered wasn't how many people saw the truth. It was that I finally did. Her life completely changed after the video. She moved to another city, deleted her accounts, started over under a new name. A mutual friend told me she's working in a small firm now, keeping her head down. Part of me hopes she learned something from all this, not for my sake, but for whoever crosses her path next. Some wounds shouldn't repeat themselves. As for me, I've rebuilt my own version of peace. I started running again, cooking more, visiting my parents every Sunday. The house feels lighter now, filled with quiet moments instead of constant tension. I even framed a picture of Jason one where he's grinning ear to ear and put it on my desk, not as a symbol of grief, but as a reminder of why I survived. Sometimes I still replay her words in my head, but they don't hurt like they used to. They just remind me how far I've come. Because people like Lauren can only take what you give them, and for too long. I gave her my love, my loyalty, and my silence. I'll never make that mistake again. If there's one thing Jason's death taught me and Lauren's betrayal proved, it's this. Not everyone deserves access to your pain. Some people only come close so they can weaponize it. And when they finally do, the best revenge isn't shouting back. It's walking away and living well.